You're listening to the Dare to Dream Network with your host, Dr. Michael McCain, an international business coach, best-selling author, philanthropist, motivational speaker, and multi-level business strategist, bringing you the best in small business and corporate development, business strategies, personal motivation and inspiration, branding and business building, relationships and people skills, wealth building and wealth creation. For more information, visit www.mccaininternationalinc.org.
All right, we're live. Thank you for tuning into the Dare to Dream Network. And today I have a guest with me on this cast, and we're going to be talking about first steps to entrepreneurship. I'm privileged to have on the line Anthony Howard. Can you just say hello to everyone for me?
Hello, everyone.
Anthony Howard is a best friend of mine and also a business associate and business partner. We ran a business together some years ago, which was a cleaning business called Cleaning Kings. And we were in New York while running this business. So I thought as I got up today to podcast and do some things, that who better to have a discussion with about business than someone who has actually worked with me in the past and kind of shared in some of those experiences. So this is why he's on the line today. So whether if you're watching this by video, you won't see him, but you will hear his voice. And if you're listening to this through podcast, of course, you'll be hearing his voice. But I want you to take in the information that you'll hear today. I want you to be inspired and motivated to know that whatever your business is and where you are in your life, what you're doing, where you're starting, that's why I picked the topic. I kind of finagled around with trying to figure out what exactly the topic was going to be. But I thought it was appropriate to choose first steps to entrepreneurship. And we're going to get more in depth into that topic, and we're going to expand on it. And this is just the start. So this is the first casting on talking about first steps to entrepreneurship. And I don't want to bore you with the usual stuff, talking about all the stuff you always hear from everybody who talks about entrepreneurship. We can get into that stuff later. Right now, I can tell you from my own experience how I started, where I started, what did I do to become who I am today. And that's exactly why Anthony is on this line. So, Anthony, I want to just have a dialogue with you about the time that we started the cleaning business. I say we, even though I had technically started doing little odds and end jobs before, but to be technical, we didn't really become a legal business until you decided to move to New York and partner with me. So can you tell those that are listening what that experience was like, starting a business for the first time, being your own boss, and having enough faith even to uproot yourself from your family, where you used to live, and partner with someone to start a company?
Having the space part, that was pretty crazy because, like, you talked about business and talked about doing things over the phone all the time, but if you're in New York and I was living in Michigan, it was really kind of hard for you to see that actually happened. Because, of course, we're in two separate states. I think it was two separate times now, so it was like, how is this going to get accomplished? But after talking about it and talking about it for years and years, it was finally like, okay, we're going to make this happen. Somebody has to make a move. So, of course, you want to be in New York, so that means I had to come there. The move okay, it has to be done, so let's do it. So I moved. Um, as far as being my own boss and everything, that part was the greatest part because you're not scheduled to someone's schedule. You don't have somebody that's over you. You don't have to ask anybody but yourself. Setting your own hours, setting your own days. 100% of the money is going to you. That part was great. I loved all of that.
Would you say that it requires a special kind of discipline to be your own boss?
It does. Because one thing about it is setting your own schedule and everything. A lot of the time, you don't have the mindset of saying, well, I can do it whenever I do it. I can get to it whenever I get to it. Okay, I have time to do this because I don't have anybody to answer to. You really have to discipline yourself to make yourself work, discipline yourself to make yourself just do. And like I said, it's very easy to say, well, I can say, okay, normally I just like, I think with us, when we were doing finishing, our days were every other day.
Right.
And sometimes it was easy for me to say, well, I can just go tomorrow, knowing I'm supposed to be here today. And it's like, no, you already gave people a set schedule at that time that you want to be there. Just because you make the day doesn't mean that you can miss them. Especially if it's something that, really isn't time consuming or something that you really can't put off, or really don't have to put it off for. Get up and do it. Actually, go to work.
Right. Right. And for me, the transition of going from the first business that we successfully started to now evolving into another branch of something in a complete different industry. I went from the service industry. I'm still technically in the service industry, but I went from providing a service through cleaning with a cleaning business to now developing a coaching business as well as a publishing company. And those are two very different natures in skill. And just as we have already forestated, it requires discipline. When you want to get up on a day-to-day basis and make the decision that you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a disciplined person. Not just discipline in your day-to-day actions and skills, but you also have to be disciplined in your work ethic. Don't put off, as what Anthony was saying, don't put off tomorrow what you're supposed to do today. And if there is something that you can squeeze into your today to prevent or to clear out your work schedule for tomorrow, then do that. And while we're having this conversation, I want to talk or open up what was our first couple of experiences like after we started the business, because I can tell you where my mind is at right now. I remember going into the whole marketing, investing in the marketing, and yes, social media did exist during that time, but not too many people were educated enough as to how to use that or how to maximize the potential of using social media to grow their business. It was still fresh. It was still very early for most people. So to say I knew to use YouTube to market my business, no, I didn't. But that didn't mean that the idea never crossed my mind. Being a young entrepreneur at the time, it doesn't mean that MySpace and Facebook never crossed my mind to advertise. It was just all so fresh and so new that you would rather stick to what you know than to try something new at that time and fail. So in essence, here's where my mind is. My mind is on those first opportunities that we had to advertise and market the business. We took care of all of the basics, creating all of our business cards, our flyers, getting the word out there for the business. And do you recall what the first couple of weeks and months were like as we were marketing the business, and what that experience was like?
It was nerve-wracking. of our money was going into business cards, buying the paper for the flyers, keeping the ink stocked up in the printer to print all the flyers. Like you said, also, we were relying on word of mouth, and we literally walked all over New York, posting up flyers, anywhere that we could.
Mm-hmm.
And the first couple of weeks, after the first 2.5, 3 months, not getting any sponsors on it. It was like, okay, we just did all of this work, like all of our money is going out the window, we're putting out money and we're not getting anything in. It was no-brainer. It was like, okay, is this actually going to work? Is this something that, with all the time that was invested, making sure that the flyers were eye-catching first off with all the different color inks and stuff that we had to do, and making sure that everything was ordered right, or putting it in the right places and everything wasn't something that was actually going to work, because it seemed like it was going to at first.
Right. And I do recall like 99% of our first phone calls were not prospects looking for the fulfillment of the services that we provided. 99% of those calls were people looking for jobs.
Yeah.
That's what I recall and remember. So we knew that what we were doing, yes, was working. People were seeing it. But we were not landing too many clients in the beginning. So it took a lot of faith, and I'm bringing this point up to let people know it doesn't matter where you start, it's the fact that you start. And in your beginning, you will be faced with a lot of opposition. You'll be faced with a lot of trials. You'll be faced with critics. You'll be faced with people that just don't believe in what you're doing. And you have to have the fortification to say, you know what, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to let this disturb me or deter me from my goal. I have a set goal in mind. And I say this is a biblical principle, but I use this as a life principle. Always keep the end in mind. Always keep the end in mind. If you focus on what is happening and existing in your present life, all the trials, the headaches, the situations you have to face, how hard it is, how things are not getting any better, we already know that that's the story, or that's the situation right now. That's not what you want to focus on. What you want to focus on is the end. What is the end result? Keep that in your view. Keep that in your mindset. Keep that in the forefront, because that's what's going to keep you motivated at times when you hear a no. That's what's going to keep you motivated when you don't get that client that day. That's what's going to keep you motivated when you don't land that sale that day. So keep the end in mind. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to end up? And that will keep your motivation level. That will keep your drive going. And when you finally get that yes, it's like you won the World Series championship. It's the greatest feeling of joy that you could ever accomplish. I recall as we were building the business, when we did receive our first few phone calls that were for clients, it was not major money that we were making. It was not major money, but we were appreciative. We were glad to finally see our hard efforts starting to pay off. And at the end, we were able to start creating enough money that basically replenished what we had already put out. And that's the truth about entrepreneurship when you're starting a business, no matter what it is. Usually that first couple of months, first couple of weeks, it just depends on the nature of the business. Usually a lot of what you're investing and putting in is just that, an investment. You're planting a seed, and you don't always see the harvest, and you don't always see the fruit of that return to you right away. And that's why entrepreneurship is not for everyone, because people are looking for that quick gratification. They're looking for something that is instant. I want to give you $100 today, and you turn around and make it 1,000 by the end of this week. And that's not always possible. So with entrepreneurship, you have to understand that there are many sacrifices, and there are points where as you progress, you visit some checkpoints, you visit some critical times, you visit some times of reevaluation. And as you learn these different processes and things that you'll go through, you also get to that point called harvest. And I want to lead in with our first loyal and consistent client, because we had some clients that would call here and there. We had some projects that were one-time projects. But when we started to develop some loyal clients and had the ability to visit multiple clients in a day or schedule clients, can you provide just a little bit about what that experience was like?
Sure, but if I could say something first about something you said something earlier. The thing about building a business, I think I've said it before to someone else. Anytime that you're building up something, it's just like working out. The more that you build it up, the more that it said something that it draws my memory about. Because we had a lot of people that were saying, y'all crazy, y'all need to just go get, find your 9 to 5 to work. If you need to just do this, you need to just do that. It was a dream, it was a baby of ours, it was something that we wanted to do. So like we had to get to a place where all of the naysayers and the people who didn't believe in what we were doing, we literally had to, a lot of them we had to cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to get ourselves to a space where we said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Anybody that's not for us, anybody that doesn't believe us, anybody that's not pushing, anybody that's not encouraging, vote them.
Right.
See, as it starts to grow, and then it's funny because those same people turn around and say, well, oh, why you ain't asked me to work for the company? You didn't believe we was going to do it in the first place.
Absolutely true.
So it's like, with anything, like you say, it takes so much goodness. It takes determination, it takes focus, it takes concentration. I mean, there's so many things that goes into it because literally, I mean, like I said, you're building something from the ground up. You're building up a reputation, you're building up a clientele, you're building up confidence, encouraging yourself. Because a lot of times I find that a lot of people that start things don't even really believe that they have the ability to do it, but they do it based off the strength of it's what business to do.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing, saying right.
So, I mean, there's so many things that go into starting and building a business, but it all starts with you personally. If it's something that you have a passion for, it's something like is a dream of yours, if nobody else does it, you have to make it work. Like you were talking earlier, I can't hear that, they're calling it very often, it works the same. You have to be the one to work. If nobody else does it. If nobody else is up grinding, if nobody else is up researching, nobody else is up marketing, advertising, nobody else is doing anything concerning your dreams or visions or business, whatever, you have to. Because if nobody else is pushing it, and you're not pushing it, it's not going to go nowhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The first couple clients, the consistent clients, the funny shit, the first one I thought about was their merchants. Oh, Jesus. I don't know if I could stand that woman, but God knows that woman took us through the ringer. Because when what was it? She had a lung issue or something, so we couldn't use cleaning products. So
right.
everything had to be really, really super hot water. Like that's the only thing you could clean with. And that's what you couldn't use vacuum or something like that because she had a cat. So everything had to be swept. But you could only sweep the room she wasn't in because of her lung issues. So when you done for anything like that was a problem. So we went to her was it once a week or like 2 or 3? No, I think it was like twice a week.
Twice a week.
And it was like she annoyed the life out of me because she was never satisfied. Like, she was happy that we were coming because she finally had somebody that could clean and somebody that could help people house them. But she was just never satisfied with anything. So like we would get there, be there for hours and hours. I mean, 6, 7, 8 hours like we were working a regular job, just cleaning one house, and we were only getting like what, $50 for it.
Right. Right. And through that experience, I learned the value of quality. It's not that we were ever poor workers, that we have, excuse my expression, that we half-assed did any job. That was never the case. But given the circumstances that we were dealt with, a client who is battling lung cancer, you can't use certain chemicals and do certain things. And yes, there were organic chemicals and things that we could have sprayed and used, but she didn't even want them. You know, we gave her options and she didn't want them. So we had to compromise at the best level we knew how, do whatever it was that we needed to do. And I remember having a moment talking with you saying, look, I know that this won't be forever. I don't even see us being here this long. But I really feel like we're here for a purpose and a reason. And the price tag absolutely has nothing to do with it, because she could never pay us enough to come in there and accomplish all the work that we did. So we knew that beyond having that customer experience, being proud business owners, getting things started, getting our first couple of clients under our belt, we understood very early the value of going out of your way to please a customer, going out of your way to give that customer the best experience he or she could have. And that was one of the lessons that I gathered from her, because by the time we moved on to other clients, we never heard a complaint ever. Matter of fact, we saw people cry. We saw people awe-stricken, where they couldn't even express how happy they were. They noticed the change. We watched people walk indoors and literally light up because they just can't believe this is the same facility, the same space that we're working in, or that, you know, they're visiting somewhere they're frequently visiting, and just can't believe the change, the atmosphere, just from providing a simple cleaning service. So can you let the people know that are listening, what type of clients, should I say, were we blessed to be able to work with in the future after we got our leg up and got started?
Wow, thinking from where we started to where we ended up. Like I said, from the emergency, then I can't remember the family that was out in Queens that we used to go to, but it made me think of something that that never left me to see my house here. I remember their oven was so horrible. It was just I cleaned the oven, and the wife, I think she did cry. She was like, I've been trying to clean this oven for months. She was like, how did you do that? She was like, what did you use? What did you do? It was crazy, because really, I didn't use anything, but they had it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy, because she really was like, I don't know what year I did, but thank you so much. I think she told me like 5 or 6 times, like, thank you. Like, and it got so bad I didn't even want to use the oven before, because, you know, every time we used it, it failed, and it was crazy. Like, she was so happy because the oven was clean. Now, it took a couple hours, some of that stuff was taken on there, but I mean, it's almost like a brand new oven. But we went from them to working literally for millionaires. I mean, we cleaned their business, and even got invited to clean their mansion. And I will never forget being invited to the mansion to clean up when they moved into. That right there is one of the greatest experiences of us working ever. to have somebody be so impressed with with the job that you done at this business to say, I want you to come to my personal house and clean up. And these people didn't have, like I said, they were digging it. They could have paid somebody to come do that. They could have got another, somebody else. But
Right.
they said, okay, y'all such a great job. I want you to come clean my house.
Right. And I just want people to know, I wrote about that experience in my book, The Newborn Entrepreneur. For those of you that have not read it, go get it. It's the perfect book for any person considering starting a business, wanting to be an entrepreneur, or anything of that sort. Just what Anthony just told you about, that whole experience of going from literally people's apartments to cleaning people's 4-bedroom homes to working for millionaires. I didn't make this stuff up. Some people walk around trying to be something that they're not. Some people want success so bad that they'll lie for it. What I've told you in my books, what I've told you even through this interview, is the truth. We went from literally nothing, and I mean that, nothing. We started with nothing. We didn't even have the money to get the business started. All we had was faith. All we had was that idea. And that's where a lot of you are right now. You know exactly what you want to do, the type of business that you want to have, but you don't see the finances. You don't see the resources. You don't see the opportunity. You may not have committed to looking into the research as to how to make that happen. And notice all the things that I'm bringing up just in common conversation. These are your first steps, is to take that time to, one, know what your demographic is, your audience. Who do you want to reach? Who will buy your product? Who will support your service? That is very important. You need to know that. 2, you need to know how and where you plan to market. 3, you need to assess what it's going to cost you to provide this service so that you're not undercutting yourself. And aside from that, if you're really at that starting point and you're at the point of nothing, I mean, don't have 2 pennies to rub together, you have your vision. Your vision, in my eyesight and my thoughts, your vision is always $1 million vision. I don't care if it's a t-shirt business. Some people just think too small. They don't know how to maximize a thing. They don't know how to take something that could be simple and make it bigger. And that's what entrepreneurs do. They don't see things from a faint eyesight. They see things that other people don't see. And so I understand it's a struggle when you're first starting and you don't really know how things are going to turn out, who's going to support, who's going to be there, where the money is going to come from. And let me say this also, you may not be in a position to absolutely work on faith. You may not be in a position to quit a job and start a business. But what you can do is exercise your faith no matter where you are, whether if it's at nothing or if it's at working that 9 to 5 and starting a business on the side that will cause you to be in a better place in the long run. You have to do it. And I'll put it like this. Indecision, not making a decision, is still a decision. You still end up at a point, whether if that is with something or without something. So you can't sit around and procrastinate. You can't sit around and beat yourself up or tear your idea apart and say it's dumb. And definitely don't let others do that for you. You have to make the decision to say, you know what? I believe in this thing so much that with or without, I have to make this happen. And that's exactly what we were able to do. And I want to also talk about what were some of the basic things that we did to raise money to start this business. This is for the person that's like piss poor, broke, you know, sitting somewhere on their granny's couch, their aunt's couch, their mama's couch, living with somebody, don't have a dime, got holes in their drawers, they so broke.
Well, that's the problem. I know we have some patients, probably, and I know I'm all quite a few things.
Right.
Man, like I'm really trying to be with her. It was so much. But that business that, like, a lot of, wow, what did we do?
We did just what you said. Each of us pawned something. We borrowed money. We sacrificed money. We started tithing into the amount that we needed. Not per se that we created a budget and said, okay, if I pinch and do this or that, but what we started doing was tithing towards our vision and giving out of whatever income that we did make. We always allotted something towards our next business move. And aside from that, myself, I had another little side hustle that I was doing. And to those that are listening that are not religious, don't attend church, you may not understand or know what I'm talking about. And my side hustle was creating head coverings. Women in church wore head coverings. So I created head pieces and sold the head pieces. And that gave me a couple of $100 and gave me a little bit of financial support to invest into the business. And it was a hustle that gave me enough pocket change to invest in our marketing, to invest in our legal work, to get started. And then last but not least, I do recall that we also hustled selling candy.
Oh, yeah, I completely forgot about that. I don't know how I forgot about that. God knows it's worth my time.
So we did whatever it took. There was no excuses. We didn't know what an excuse was. And that's the mindset that you have to have, is that I don't care what it requires, what I have to do. If I have to wash cars, if I have to clean a couple of people's houses, if I have to be a babysitter temporarily to raise the money that I need to get this vision or this dream off the ground, if I got to sell chicken dinners, whatever it requires to make that vision happen, to give you the start, to give you the startup capital that you need, do it. Now, most business advisors will tell you, borrow money from friends and family. Sometimes that does not always work. Honest to God, does not always work. So for most people that are pursuing entrepreneurship, the reality is that you will end up working your job and finding a side hustle, a hobby or something that gives you extra cash, and using that to invest into starting your business. That's the reality for most people. But for the person that has absolutely nothing, holes in your drawers and sitting on somebody's couch, your best bet is to find a hobby. And I don't know if you remember this, but literally what we did back in those years of starting this cleaning business was we took very basic skills, something very simple, something that we do every day that nobody thinks is valuable, and we turned it into a business. And I remember the struggle of going out, filling out hundreds of job applications and could never get a yes, could never get hired nowhere. Not because I was not skilled, not educated, didn't have no kind of background. My background was working in hospitals with the mentally ill, alcohol dependent, and geriatrics. That was my work history and background. So it wasn't that I didn't have history. It wasn't that I didn't have skill. It wasn't that I didn't have the know-how. But what the issue became was that just wasn't my destiny. And very simple, I had to say to myself, okay, what is one thing that I do every day, whether if I go out from the house or not, whether if I go to a job or not, what is the one thing that I do every day that I don't really consider a major anything? I don't consider it a major skill. I don't consider it a talent, but it's something that I do every day. It's very simple and everybody needs it. And the one thing that I thought of was cleaning. I'm cleaning every day. And I thought about it at that time back then, how many hours I spent cleaning my own house. 3 and 4 hours cleaning the house, top to bottom, for no reason. And then I said, you know what, if I take this and apply this to my everyday life and use this as a business, I could create income for myself. And so that was the beauty. That was the beauty of what we were able to accomplish at that time. The value that we received from it was the ability to start a business and end up successful. So I'm calling Anthony back because the call dropped. Hello? Okay, he's back. But I was leading out with the fact that we were able to start something from nothing. We were able to create value out of an everyday skill that everybody uses, everybody needs, and we turned it into something that was profitable for us. Trying to backtrack in my mind, when we were privileged to work with millionaires, enter into their homes, what was your overall impression at that time of life and where we were in business? What were some of the things that spoke to you during that time, and how did that affect your confidence as a person?
It's funny because I felt like with where we were at in the business at that point in time, that we should have even had a client like that. Because literally, like, we were still building the business when we got the contract.
Right.
So,
the ink hadn't dried.
Right. We didn't have our own vehicle. We didn't have our own flies. I mean, like, I think when we went to the conference, they were asking, like, okay, do I have husband? No. Do you have patio? No. Like, we got us. We got us. And that's really what we had. So, like, for me at that point, it was like, man, for us to be working, for what we're working for, and I felt like we were still in the baby phases of the business. It was crazy for me because back in the day, took a chance on us and that we were with them as long as we were. To me, that was the greatest confidence of it because it was like, even though we didn't have the stuff that any other people, our competition had at the moment, we were still doing the job in to more greater than what the status credit customer.
Exactly.
And I believe they said before, like a lot of the people that were with them who were living for with the millionaires, they were saying it's all our fault because we had before they wasn't doing nothing. So I got this place looking like a different place, and we wasn't doing nothing to clean it up. We didn't rearrange nothing, nothing to do with it, we didn't paint nothing, we didn't do nothing different. All we did was clean up. And they're like, it's like it's a whole new facility.
Right.
And for me, that spoke to the quality that, not that we were right, it spoke to our work ethic. Because think about how that place was when we first got there. All the dust, the dirt, all our
the disorganization.
And then go, and they always treat us like they want a bus to go up.
Yeah.
They was right. I mean, and they were like, man, for the people who did had to keep us first, that was the one that got me. That was the greatest thing for me. For the people who didn't see us for a while, and then finally meet them, like, okay, all the people that cleared up, like, oh my God, that's not just, I mean, we had people on, they were trying to give us credit. Like, here, just let me give you the $20 just for the job that you did. This is so great. It's like, well, we already get paid. I know you already get paid, but I want to get you this because I love what you done with the Like, there were so many times where I was turning down taking money from people. There was like a couple of them, like, yeah, I want to invest in your company because you already did a great job. I have to get something to you for what you do.
And that was the tips, the perks of doing a job well done, where people that are just visitors, they're not even authority figures within the place that we were working for. Just people that frequent there that was just so impressed with the service that they felt the need to tip. And I'm going to say this in this context. For people that are working a 9-to-5 job, the only thing your job is doing is tipping you for your work. But when you add up the true value of what you do, you're not earning and making what you really should be making no matter where you're working. At the end of the day, that $8, $9, $10, $12, $13, $14, $15, $20 to whomever is making it is only a tip compared to the value of the work that you provide for that person. So in essence, becoming an entrepreneur is honing in on your ability to take your skill, whether if that's the skill that you wake up with at your 9-to-5 or it's your everyday life skills. Notice how both industry people that get up and go to a 9-to-5 job can take those skills and turn it into a business. They become speakers. They become coaches. They start coaching Fortune 500 companies after working for 2 or 3 Fortune 500 companies, or they start taking small businesses and teaching them how to become Fortune 500 companies, because that is a skill that they've practiced for so many years, and they start to see, learn, and know the value of taking that skill and turning it into a business for themselves. And look at stay-at-home mothers, the whole stay-at-home mom movement, where mothers became bloggers, earning money through blogging, selling products, writing books, etc., and learning what it required to provide that comfortability to be able to stay home, do what they do on an everyday basis, love their children, make babies, etc., but still be able to have a paycheck and put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads, etc. So there is power, there is value in knowing your purpose and knowing your skills and ability and being able to deliver on those skills and abilities with value. People will tip you. And pretty soon, to those that are moving forward in your business, you're doing your thing, I stress the point to you, don't just provide a product, don't just provide a service, provide value. Make sure that every customer or client that you interact with experiences the value of your brand. Go above and beyond to impress that client, and I guarantee you, without fail, they will brag about you, they will make referrals to you, they will tip you. And I don't even want to talk about that, but I did another interview where we talked about money stops BS, where when people are uncomfortable with your prices and uncomfortable with your packages and whatever it is that you do, you have to stand by your value. You have to know that if it costs $1,200 for you to do something, you have to stand by that. Because oftentimes when you start undercutting your prices and offering a whole lot of discounts, what the mindset of people is, well, then maybe I can find it cheaper somewhere else. Maybe if I'm getting such big discounts, then maybe that's not the true value of what I should be paying in the first place. And so, yes, as a business owner, sometimes discounts work, but sometimes you have to know the value of the price that you're charging and stand by that and be confident. And I want to lead in, Anthony, with the whole experience of when we did land that first major contract with the millionaire. Do you remember or recall the experience of when we had to sit and negotiate our price and what happened at that moment? Because I have a very good memory. It's a memory that keeps me encouraged every time that I think about it. And even to this present day, when I talk to a customer and I give them my price, I have that experience in the back of my head. So do you recall what happened when we negotiated our contract with that company?
They wasn't trying to go for it at first. They were like, well, the people we had before you only charged us this much, and I think they were saying we were, I think somewhere between $150 to $200 more than what they were asking for before. And they were saying that it was out of their budget, they couldn't do it, and I think they even made references, like I said, to the stuff that we said, well, you don't need to have your own stuff, this and that or whatever. You know, at first it seemed like they weren't going to go with us. I was really tripping because I'm saying, you know, this will be a great opportunity, and it doesn't seem like we're going to get it. And I remember sitting and saying, like, okay, did he just mess us up? Because you were, like you said, you were fine. He was like, okay, no, for as big as this place is, and y'all try to have us come in here 3 times a week, this is what you won't pay us. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they, at first, they wasn't trying to help. Okay, well, let me go talk to my boss and see what she says. They come back, okay, well, do you think you can? No, we can't knock nothing off of it. This is what we're asking, and we not backing down. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I think we did that about maybe 4 or 5, and maybe 6 different times where she got up and said, okay, well, let me go see what they say. We came back, but do you think you can? No, we can't do it. We don't think we can do it. We're not going to try to do it. This is what we're asking for the service that we're providing. This is what you're going to pay us, or you're not going to get us. Right. And it was like, oh, okay, well, we'll work something out, then we'll call you. And that waiting game was hard, and it was like, man, we might have just missed a great opportunity. We might have flirted with these people. And when they called back, like, oh, okay, great, we're going to start on such and such, I was like, whew, got it.
Well,
like, I honestly didn't think that we were going to, because they didn't seem like they were not trying to pay us what they paid us.
Let's backtrack a little bit in that story. Not that you didn't tell it accurately, but I want those that are listening to get the full effect. We negotiated at least 2 or 3 times on the first sitting, and everything that I offered, they didn't accept, and they didn't want it. And so we agreed to disagree. We shook hands, and we walked out of the building. And as we were walking to return to the train, we got a phone call. Now, during that walk, I remember Anthony looking at me saying, Michael, I think you've lost your mind. I think you could have came down just a little bit more. And I was pleading my cause with Anthony, stating that I really felt like anything that we did at that point would be a disvalue to us. We would be cutting ourselves short by not being paid more. And no, a price tag was not the ends all or means all of the situation, but my mindset was, you are already a multi-millionaire. Millions of dollars comes through this particular facility, sometimes on a daily basis, if not a weekly basis. And the menial task of what I'm required to do while it be a grand one with a facility of over 20 rooms, I'm considering that what I'm asking you for is of standard. I refuse to go any lower. If anything, truth be told, I should go higher, but this is as low as I'm willing to go. And that was one of the best and greatest business decisions I was ever led to make. And I believe, as young as we were at the time, being what? I was probably 19 years old. Anthony? Yeah, not even 21 years old yet, but having the mindset to make such a decision, and as we call it, an executive decision. When we walked out, to be honest with you, as firm as I was and as confident as I was in my asking of the price or negotiating of the price, there was that small moment of, I think you effed up. There was that small window, and then I prayed as I walked, because I'm a person of faith. I prayed as I walked, and this confidence came over me that everything was okay. I don't know where it came from. And as we walked, my phone rang again, and we were asked to come back. And I looked at Anthony on the way back, and I was like really motivated on that walk back, because I said, Anthony, we didn't even get nowhere yet, and they're asking us to come back. This is a very good sign. So as we came back, not only did they give us what we asked for, but in turn, as we worked there, we actually end up being paid even more than that, almost twice that. So I thank God for that experience. It was a very good experience as a independent business owner. It taught me the value of the service that I provide, being able to make a demand off of the quality of service that I provide, and knowing how to stick by that. Because there's some people in business that get taken advantage of because they don't know the value of what they offer. They undercut themselves. They're so desperate to have another client under their belt that they'll say yes to everyone and no to anyone, and not no to anyone. So I think, in a nutshell, this interview, this discussion that we were having about first steps to entrepreneurship, this is my way of sharing my experience with you, what I was privileged and blessed to do as an entrepreneur. And this is only a pinch. This is only a drop in the bucket compared to some of the other projects I was blessed to work with or work on. But I want to encourage each and every person that's listening, know your value. Stick by your dream. It's not always going to look easy. It's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to feel great. But when you desperately want something, and notice the key word, desperately want something. How bad do you want it? How bad do you want to be a business owner? How bad do you want to see that business come to pass? How bad do you want to make that thing happen? How bad do you want to see your dream come alive? What does it require to get you to that space, to that place of realization that it's not a dream no more, it's happening? And Anthony, I don't know about you, but I had several bouts with that experience as we ran that business, where it was like I'm wiping the mirror and looking at myself in the mirror, saying to myself, I remember when I could just visualize myself doing this and it was just an idea, but now I'm doing it and I'm getting a paycheck and it's real. This is really happening. This is not just an idea in my head or in my back pocket anymore, but I'm really doing this. Another surreal moment for me was the visit to the mansion. The visit to the mansion was an experience that just blew me away completely. I have seen as well as visit, or if not passed by, several mansions in my life. I remember even on half days of school, growing up in Riverdale in the Bronx, we would go to the rich neighborhood. We were already in a very affluent neighborhood anyway, but we would go even further out into certain neighborhoods where the wealthy live and just walk around in those neighborhoods and just look at the vast houses. Matter of fact, some of our friends that I went to school with, classmates, their parents worked for billion-dollar companies in the Twin Towers, what was then the Twin Towers. So growing up around affluent people was not something estranged to me, but that experience of going into the mansion of the CEO of the company that we were working for at the time provided a full circle experience for me for several reasons. Not just because it was the CEO or the owner, the head person, the one that makes all the decisions and the one who's making the money and making the moves. What was the surreal moment for me was several things. Was as I walk in his footsteps, I could see myself there. Two, what I also was able to see was a person who did on every single level the same things that I did as I was coming up as an entrepreneur.
Right.
He worked at a cleaning company. He did some of the same things that I did at that age, and then was able to produce the type of life that he's living right now. And let me bring it all together full circle. It wasn't just that experience of walking in, seeing the mansion, working for this person. He's a multimillionaire. He's an author, best-selling author. He's a preacher, which are all things I happen to be. It was surreal for me because I'm looking at a preacher, multimillionaire, best-selling author, a person who has the phenomenal skills to speak and to write, and I had those same gifts also. So on every level, I'm face to face with a mentor, indirectly, face to face with a person who embodies what it is to be me. And when I walked alongside of those footsteps, I could easily see myself being able to accomplish some of the same things he was blessed to accomplish. And the number one thing that set everything off for me, and please forgive me if you're listening and you are of another race, because I don't want to offend nobody, because I have followers of various multicultures. So please don't think I'm racist when I say this, but trust me, if you were walking in my shoes, you'll understand where I came from. When I say this, the other part that added so much value to me was to see a person of my background and of my color sharing that experience.
Right.
That was powerful for me, because we talk about all the time the so-called secret, the power of visualization, and knowing that you have to capture it in your mind. You have to get a picture of it in your mind. And we talk about all that stuff. But God provided me with a physical mentor, somebody I could physically see, that embodied all the same gifts and talents, who did all the same menial things that I did to make it all the way up to the top. He provided me with someone that I could visually see and take that example and say, you can do this. And to those that are listening, that's all I'm saying to you. I don't care if the person's black, white, red, short, or wrinkled. Whoever God has put in your life that is an influencer to you, that inspires you, that you can resonate with, that you can relate to, don't just admire that person. Dare not to even try to be like that person. That's the first mistake that I believe people make, is trying to replicate something someone else has done. Major mistake. I don't want what that millionaire had. I don't know what he went through to get that, but I do know I want what God has for me. And that's what you have to say to yourself. I don't want to forfeit being who I am to be somebody else. That's the mistake that people make when they create these icons and these idols and these people that they look up to. That's a major mistake. Never forfeit being yourself, being authentic to be somebody else. But always learn from somebody's example, somebody's mistake, somebody's shortcomings, somebody's overcoming, so that you can be a better person. And at the end of the day, that's the value that I received in my first steps. In my first steps of walking alongside of my business partner, in my first steps of learning what it is to be a business person, and in my first steps of God providing a physical mentor, somebody that I could tangibly see and speak to, that embodied everything of who I am and where I'm going in my life. That was the value that I received in my first steps. That's what motivates me to this day, to be a better person, to keep pushing, to reach my goals, etc. Because I have walked with wealthy people. I have been around wealthy people. Me and Anthony have produced wealthy ideas. And we know what it is to be at the start of something and reach an expected end. And that's where you need to be, at your expected end. Sometimes you don't always see it. Sometimes you don't always know what you have to go through and what it all requires. Because truth be told, if we see everything from A to B, we won't do it. If we knew how much hell we would go through, how much sleepless nights we would have, how much sacrifices we would have to make, truth be told, you would never do it.
Never.
So I just want to encourage everyone that's listening, if you really want to be inspired, you want some nuggets, some meat, invest in this book, The Newborn Entrepreneur. Also, I have 2 more other resources. If you are a spiritual person, faith-based person, I would suggest investing in the 21-day devotional, Wealth and Abundance. I'm telling you, it will break some stuff off your mind and change the way that you think. And last but not least, invest in Think Like a Millionaire. That's for those of you that are already starting the process or thinking about or considering starting the process. That book will give you the formula, the steps you need to take, and set you on the road to accomplishing your financial goals and dreams and creating your independence. So I want to close out by offering Anthony the opportunity to share any last thoughts or words of inspiration that you would have to say to the listening audience.
Nothing else. Just, as I said earlier, anything that is in your mind, anything that's in your heart, that God has placed in you to do, go after it. Go after it full speed. Don't let anybody stop you. Don't let anybody discourage you. Don't even let yourself discourage you. I know that when things don't look like what you envisioned, when things don't seem like what you thought they would look like it, if it takes longer than you expected, to still stick with it, to still go on with it. Like you said, the Bible says, better is the end than the beginning. It may look rough, it may start out rough, it may be days where you're more discouraged than anybody else is, but you still have to push and know that if God gave it to you, this is something that's in your heart, this is something that you really want to do, you can and you will do it. You stick to it, if you give your life to it, give your time to it, give your devotion to it, that you want.
Awesome. Awesome. Anthony, It has been, in the words of Les Brown, a plum-pleasing pleasure. It has been a real pleasure both to have this conversation, to reflect back with your best friend and business partner on accomplishments and things that we've been able to do in life. I'm just at the epitome of happiness right now. Thank you for even, accepting to do this interview and have this discussion with me. Means the world to me. And to those that are listening, I pray that you receive pure value out of what you have heard today. And this has been another edition of the Dare to Dream Network. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Like and add, subscribe, do all of that stuff on whatever network that you're on, because I'm everywhere. Peace.
This has been another edition of the Dare to Dream Network with Dr. Michael McCain. To order this live session on MP3 or compact disc, go to our website. Also, to book Dr. McCain for your next event, please refer to www.mccaininternationalinc.org or visit Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or Books A Million for other product information and orders.